Greetings, beautiful beings around the globe. Sasha Rose here with Venus Wisdom. And my mission is to guide more pioneering women to learn how to sync with Venus and to discover your inner heroine, strengthen your heart first leadership so you can fulfill your sacred mission during these wild and turbulent times. That's what we're up to here. We're looking at the sky story, looking at the astrology with the feminine principle at center. In this huge change of ages that we're in the process of one paradigm falling away, the paradigm of domination and control, and we're on the brink of a new paradigm being born, one that's based on nature's principles, care, connection, bonding, and honoring the feeling realm, honoring the body wisdom, honoring organic life on this planet. So let's get into it here with what's going on. It's September 13th. We are in a huge moment in the Venus cycle, which is the container with which we hold the whole dance, the whole interplay of the astrology that's happening in the sky. So I want to share some slides with you and to share this moment where we have Venus leaving one part of her cycle and moving into another part of her cycle. It's a very big moment that only happens once in this whole 19 months. So I encourage you to get some tea and settle in. If you want to take some notes, grab some paper and pen. I'm going to just grab the slides here and we will talk about what's going on. There's so much going on right now in this guide story. So Venus wisdom is this feminine principle, which we have here, the Venus symbol, which often is only looked at as a single point. And within that Venus circle, the circle is the circle of spirit, the circle of wholeness, and very ancient symbol of life itself. And within that is what's called the Venus rose, which really brings in her movement. And that is a pattern that she makes in relationship to the earth. And the Venus cycle is her dance with the sun. And from Earth's perspective, we get to see this beautiful rose that forms. And that is Venus wisdom, is the movement. And the feminine is in motion. The feminine is more of a wave experience. And we can take any point within that wave and we can look at it, we can analyze it, but it's a moment of stepping into the stream. So Venus wisdom is that continuous movement of her through her cycle, and to move with that, to move with nature and to be more aligned with our own nature, because we all have that within us, even though we've been domesticated, we've been conditioned, we've been controlled by this society, and we're breaking free. We're discovering that we're infinite beings. We're discovering that we can burn through, drop, and shift patterns faster than we ever could before during these times. Everything is speeding up, and it's exciting. It's stressful, it's heartbreaking, it's all of it. And we get to bring our whole human experience with us in this Venus wisdom way. And so let's look at a little bit more of what's moving through right now. And what is this moment that I'm speaking to where Venus is going to shift in her cycle? So at the very beginning of her cycle, I love this photo because there we are on Earth and looking out towards the sun and get to see Venus in this position that she was at on January 8th. She begins every cycle in this position. Normally, we can't see her, but this picture is taken 2012. We could actually see her eclipse the sun. And then also back in 2004. But in 2012, many felt, and I was one of them, that there was a new feminine frequency that was coming into the planet. And so that continues to ripple, and that continues to get anchored by those of us that feel called to it. And I call it the solar feminine or the new feminine frequency. And when we sync with Venus, we start to be more comfortable with this place within us where we're leading from the unknown. We're leading from the mystery within our own being. We're not cleaving to our history and our stories as much. And so I like to invoke this picture because every 19-month cycle, when we say Venus conjuncts the sun, this is what that looks like. She's meeting up with the sun. She's in this divine union, and whatever sign they're in at that point infuses the entire 19-month cycle. It's like this sacred act of lovemaking from the cosmos that really holds the entire cycle. And so in this particular cycle, Venus and Sun were at 18 degrees of Capricorn. So this Capricorn energy is going to hold the whole 19-month cycle, even as Venus moves through all of her different steps on the journey. And this 19-month Venus cycle really is a mirror of a heroine's journey. And I say heroines because it's a mirror of our inner journey to know more of ourselves. We also have a hero's journey, and that is equally important. And that is connected to the Mars and the Mars cycle. And this Venus cycle is ancient, is being rediscovered in order to anchor us more into our inner knowing at this time, when there's so much falling away and we're seeing that we can't trust authorities, or maybe we aren't seeing that, but it's being revealed. Pluto, our great revealer, is showing us all the corruption in our institutions, in our societies. And a lot of people have lost trust with the authorities, and they just don't believe anymore the stories that are being told about, how we need to organize society. And so this is a huge blessing of this cycle, is to trust our own inner authority above anything else, no matter what's happening, to tune in and to really have this relationship with that place inside of us. That's part of the Capricorn energy that is holding this cycle, to grow up, to become more mature, to be disciplined and focused on our sacred mission. What did you come here to do? And what are you doing every day to bring forth your gifts? So much energy is expended in distraction and in working on what's not a part of our passion. And so we're really being asked to and called to develop these patterns of discipline. This cycle will go all the way through to mid-August. And if you don't yet have the Venus Wisdom Calendar and Guidebook, I just brought the price down to $8 for both of them. They're on the website, venuswisdom.com. You can grab your copy, print it out, and really follow along and reflect. It's never too late to reflect on the cycle. Even if you're just coming in now, you can go back and you can really see these pivotal moments that happen in the cycle and begin to connect this sky story with your own inner journey. And that's really, there's always two dynamics at play. There's the inner and the outer. There's what's happening in the sky, there's what's happening within us. And so that interplay, is a really important part of learning and understanding, how do these energies affect me? Whatever's happening with Venus in the sky, it's like a certain current, an energetic current. And we can see that, how does that activate us? How does this Capricorn energy activate us? And then, as she's moving through each of her signs, through the cycle and each of her phases, that's going to activate us in different ways. But then we have that moment when we were born, that point in time that was frozen, that's our natal chart. And so we have our own configuration, our own design of our heart nature. And I call that the Venus avatar, because it's this combination of elements from our chart that really points us in the direction of our deepest and wisest self. And so, it's a whole process to discover that, and it never ends. It's a continual discovery. It's this love affair between Venus as our heart, represents the human heart, love, relationships, and the sun, which is the solar heart, the primal creative energy that moves everything on the planet. And those two come together in this union. Here's a quick graph. If you haven't followed this presentation before, super simple. We can see the 19 months contained within this graph. Here we are on Earth, and there's that moment that I just showed you where Venus met the sun at the beginning of the cycle, normally unseen. Usually she's invisible at that part of the cycle. That was a once-in-a-lifetime event that we could see her. And then she rises as morning star and rides through the sky for about 8 months. And then she disappears behind the sun and has a second union, secret union with the sun, and can no longer be seen. So that beginning phase is called reset. And this whole 8-month journey is morning star. And once she sets, she's in the underworld. And once she has that meetup with the sun, she crosses from a morning star to an evening star. And then she has her evening star phase. So she's a heroine on a mission, we're heroines on a mission, and we really get to link our own process of discovering our deepest power to manifest our heart desires, our purity of what do we want to see, what do we want to create in this new world. We see what's dying and what do we want to build? What kind of solutions, what kind of visions do we have of a new earth, a new reality? So here's a more complex illustration of her cycle. This is what you will receive in the guidebook if you sign up for the Venus Wisdom mailing list and get some astro guidance a couple times a month. You'll receive this free as well. And you can really see that at every month, she meets up with the moon. These are often called gates. I call them portals. I call these new Venus portals because it's this intensified time to drop into our feeling nature and to really receive what's moving through in current time. I'm not a huge fan of intentions. That is more of a head Mercury function, or using our will. That is more of a Mars function. But when Venus is this, as the solar feminine meets the lunar feminine, we have this chance to rewrite our story. The moon is what keeps us comfortable because it's familiar, even if it's not our growth edge. And so we get to look at those old stories. We get to receive what's happening now. We get to rewrite our story as the heroine, no matter what happens. And we get to check ourselves. Are we falling into victim? Are we becoming the villain in our own story? Part of this process of being heroine is we're moving towards being a guide so that we can guide the people that we're here to share our wisdom, share our knowledge with. We get to do it every 19 months. So this was January 8th that we started this cycle here in Capricorn. There's that 18 degrees, that's the glyph for Capricorn. And she's moved through all of these portals. And I'm going to talk about this final portal because this is where we are right now. On August 25th, she met the moon at 17 degrees of Leo. And of course, she had moved into Leo prior to the portal. So there's really two different dynamics going on with her moving through the different phases and meeting the moon, but then also moving through the different signs. And I love that there's these different streams of feminine energy going on because it really teaches us about multiplicity. And we are multidimensional beings. I feel like syncing with Venus really helps us discover that more and live from that place of multiplicity. So we'll look at both the phase change and the sign changes of Venus moving from Leo into Virgo, and then diving into the underworld here, where she will be invisible until December 1st. It's a great time to be reflecting on what was in our heart on January 8th. What was our quest? What do we want to achieve? Capricorn's ambitious. So it may have been an ambitious desire. And if we engaged in that heroine's journey, if we made a bold move, we definitely made mistakes. People fell away. Things went sideways. That's all part of this Morning Star process. And all of that is learning, very rich learning. And even though it's uncomfortable, and even though it can be frustrating, all of that is very much a part of humbling ourselves to see what is still alive in me that I'm playing out in the world, that's my masks, that's my identities, and what needs to be stripped in order for me to come into relationship with my true self. The heroine's journey is discovering of our true self. That is our heroine, and living from that place and having the courage to do so in a world that has really done, from the time we were young, done so much to put identities upon us. And so now we're breaking free from those and really discovering the truth of who we are. So here's just an example of the signs. The zodiac is also another journey. And Venus moves through each of the signs in a year, about once a year, once, what am I trying to say? She moves through every sign within the year, but she stays in some signs longer than others. So right now she's moving really fast. And so she's in a sign for only about 3 weeks and 3 days. 3 weeks and 3 days seems to be her sweet spot right now. She's moving fast because she's moving away from the earth, because she's preparing for this union with the sun. Other times in her cycle, she's more like 4 weeks and 3 days, but she's moving through these signs fairly quickly. And right now, she is in the sign of Virgo, which, if you are familiar with the natural zodiac, this is putting the Aries at the beginning, and that is the 6th stop in the zodiacal journey. And it's really important for sovereignty, as is Leo. There's an interplay here in this movement from discovering our inner creative gift, our passion. Really, that fixed fire is us shining at center. And then coming into Virgo, there's a refining that happens. So that's why I was really thinking about this refining of our shine right before we go into the underworld. And in dominator culture, a lot of times that refining comes up as self-criticism, and it can be very negative in our heads and coming from other people. Virgo has a bad rap for being critical, but it doesn't need to be that way. It's actually a really important function, because Virgo is preparing for the shift into Libra, which is where we begin to meet other for the first time in an awareness way, in really understanding another's perspective in a new way. And so this refining really prepares us to be in greater service. We're refining ourselves so that we can be better guides, better teachers, better at our craft, and to bring forth that gift from Leo. Leo really is that divine child, that joyfulness. And I don't know about you, again, it depends on your chart and your being and your unique Venus avatar, but I was so activated with Leo, Venus in Leo. I had all these ideas, all these creative ideas. I was just on fire. And then now she shifted into Virgo, and it's more subdued, because there's really this preparation. And of course, there's a lot of other dynamics happening in the sky. With the retrogrades that are going on, we have so many planets retrograde, including Mercury. And that is, when a planet is retrograde, that's another feminine movement, because it's an internal. So we have a lot of emphasis on the feminine, a lot of emphasis on the internal. And that's what we get to do in the underworld. We get to deepen into our internal world, and really we get to revisit that passion that was sparked in early January. Or, it's not like it was necessarily new. It might be something we've been cultivating for a long time. And we get to relate to it in a different way in the underworld. It's a deeper initiation of our heart and our sacred purpose. So this was a key that I created, and it really shows the major moves of Venus in September. I come up with these every month. So if you're on the mailing list, you'll receive that. But we can see that Venus moved into Virgo on the 4th of September, and she will move into Libra, the sign that she rules, on the 28th of September. And before that, she was in Leo. So we're going to look at all of that. This is a huge month for the solar feminine because we have the September equinox, which is the sun moves into Venus's sign of Libra. So whenever a major planet moves into one of Venus's sign, it puts this extra emphasis on Venus wisdom, syncing with Venus and remembering to anchor into that new feminine frequency, showing up to the real of who we are, showing up to be available to receive our guidance from inside out instead of taking our cues from the outside. Pardon me, I'm going to take a sip of this here. My copper vessel. And so that movement into Libra brings an energetic of a rebalancing of the feminine. And this is going to happen 1 month before Venus unites with the sun. She's going to go into Libra on the 28th, and then she's going to unite with the sun later in October on the 22nd. Save the date. Venus Wisdom's having an event on that day. You're invited. And so we'll keep moving through here because there's so much that could be talked about. But the other piece that I will mention is that Mercury retrograde is also in Venus's sign of Libra and will meet the sun at 0 degrees Libra. And so there's an emphasis on that. Mercury's the mind, communication, the, more of the linear analytical, and how much is our mind in service to the heart? If the mind is in service to the heart and our will, our outward action, Mars is in service to the heart, we really become a different kind of being than if we're really only in our heads and operating from that kind of head first way of being, where we're always thinking it through and not taking the feeling is secondary. But when we put that pure feeling first and really sit with what's happening in my heart and taking action from that place, then we might have some reflections on our relationship and with our head and our heart during Mercury mind in Libra, which is Venus's sign for this retrograde. So that's important to look at our communication, look at how are we tending to our relationships through our communication, and how much do we trust our heart in our relationships, and giving our heart voice feels like that's a part of it. Venus and Mercury are totally buddies, they're comrades, they're allies, and they're gonna have a meetup in the underworld. So the new Venus portal, that meetup, if you remember from that graph with Moon and Venus together, now this is happening in the pre-dawn sky as morning star. So it's the balsamic waning moon for the morning star, just a little sliver, and Venus in the east pre-dawn, because as soon as the sun comes up, the sun washes away the visibility. And so that happened on August 25th. And if you were up early that morning, it looked like this or something like this. There's Venus and there is the moon. So that's the visual of what it looks like. And I'm playing with archetypes here of Venus and moon, and that rewrite that can happen of our history, of how we have done it, what's been familiar to us, and the dawning of something new that's arising in our heart now, that's really honoring who we are now and really bringing us more into our multi-dimensional knowing, instead of referencing our conditioning and how it's been and what happened before and carrying that forth with us into the future. We really get to choose at those portals. So that Leo portal was opening up this energetic of fixed fire. So that fire at center. And there's really this desire to show, and to be seen and to express and to create with Leo. And if you have any Leo in you, or any Leos, this to be true. There's a real generous spirit with Leo. And it can be an excellent time for self-love, for self-appreciation, for being proud of oneself, which often is not something that we received as children. There's a childlike energy to this, there's a playfulness, and it can be a really good time to tap into that for ourselves and to bring that kind of joyful spirit into this inner retreat time that we're going into in the underworld. Okay, so here's the image that I made. I'm trying to illuminate these different energies that are happening, because there's always this current that's happening in the sky. I mean, this is just Venus alone. We can, go into all the other astrology as well. But when we're holding Venus at center, we want to look at, well, what does that mean? So we're in the end of the morning star descent, which means as she met the moon in those 8 months, that conjunction, that meetup happened lower and lower and lower in the sky. And even when the moon wasn't there, Venus was getting lower and lower and lower, moving away from Earth and really going out on her own, finding her sovereignty. So there's a connection here with Venus in Leo, and, this sense of Leo's connected also to royalty. And that's a theme of what's happening right now too, this energy of royalty. And so she was in Leo from August 11th until September 4th. So you can think back to that time and what was happening for you and how you were feeling if you weren't aware of that in the moment. And again, we have this image of Venus with the movement, with that 5-petaled rose inside of her, that Venus sometimes is called a star, the pattern that she makes in the sky. And so we had Venus in Leo, and the morning star is generally a young, bold heroine on a journey. So I chose images of younger women as archetypes. Look at, she's having fun, she's expressing, there's a very playful energy here with her in Leo. So we've got all of this going on. The end of the morning star descent, Venus being in Leo from the 11th to September 4th. And also this Venus in Capricorn cycle, as I said, is holding all of it. And Capricorn's the elder. One of the archetypes for that is the indigenous grandmother. And Daniel Jamario from the Shamanic Mystery School, I think, was one of the first to put that forth. And it's really caught on for me. It really resonated that that's one of the most beautiful expressions of Capricorn, is this grandmother council, this grandmother energy who has time in. Capricorn's about time, earthy, connected to nature. Capricorn's very much in alignment with nature's principles, because it's all about the motion, the initiation of our physicality. It's not about concept. It's not about inspiration. It's like actually what we do. And so there's this, this motion of taking action for the community, for the youngers that are coming, that lends to that grandmother spirit being there. And also, the wisdom that comes from being a woman, giving birth, and what happens, there's such a deep humbling that happens in that process in our spirit, from really being of service to another being in a way that's, there's lots of mothering energy and nurturing energy. There's something unique about bringing a baby through, and then, really being that wisdom, having that wisdom developed through mothering and then passing that on to the next generation. So there's a lineage happening here with the Capricorn. It's about time and how, the history, the legacy continues. And so the Venus star point, I put that star in there to differentiate. So this is Venus's sign. This is only 3 weeks. This is the star point, and that's going to hold the entire cycle all the way to August 13th, 2023. So we get this 19 months of that Capricorn energy in the background. That's within us. It's cultivating that within us. It's asking us to become the elders, holding the experience, even as we might be having the delight of Leo and having the playfulness, to hold that ultimate, authority over how we move through the world, and to really step it up for what needs to happen in our community. how can we channel that creative energy in a way that really is cohesive with this larger vision of what we're creating, what we're manifesting, not getting distracted and going and partying and dissipating all our creative energy, but really harnessing that for a larger vision over time. Okay, so that's that slide. Hopefully that helps you to feel into this, what's happening in the sky, this, current of energy has all of these different dimensions. And then, of course, we each have our own unique design. So that's going to land for us differently, depending on who we are. So this is what that looked like. And if you don't know astrology, that's totally fine. You probably do know the glyph for Venus, the glyph for Moon, and this is the glyph for Leo, which is like the lion's tail or the lion's mane. Again, it's just really connecting that fiery energy with strength and passion and creativity, and also, as I said, the royalty. And so we can see that the sun here at 2 degrees of Virgo. So the sun is further ahead in the zodiacal flow than Venus for morning star. And so the sun is right next to this fixed star called Regulus. And that's important in opening up this portal. Just as you would look at a new moon chart, the chart's important for the whole portal, which goes all the way through September of 25th, through the equinox. This is a really, really important new Venus portal for this cycle. There's a lot of transitions. There's a lot of other planetary influences, but we can look at what is the new story of us as sovereign beings as we move into this underworld time. How did we have the courage to shine at center, even when, there's a lot of Plutonian energy in this cycle? There might have been people who didn't appreciate our truth. There might have been fallouts with families. There's been so many breaks and so many separations and so many divisions. And then how are we loving ourselves and being willing to be the expression, give voice to the expression of what we want to create in the world, in this larger Capricorn, fabric of our sacred purpose. And so the sun is always really important in Venus wisdom, of course, because there's this interplay of Venus and sun through the cycle. And a very momentous shift happened back in November of 2011, where the fixed star Regulus moved into the sign of Virgo, which hadn't happened for thousands of years. Fixed stars move very slowly. And because of the precession of, the equinoxes, the constellations and the signs have gotten further and further away from each other. And there's, 2 different kinds of astrology because of that. Well, this was a very big deal to have a fixed star that has been in Leo for thousands of years, has been at 29 degrees Leo since 1940. To shift into the sign of Virgo, which is the sacred feminine, which is the maiden energy, which is the healer, the herbalist, which is this virgin whole unto herself, another doorway into sovereignty, and oftentimes connected to the priestess and that devotional energy that one has when one has a practice. Again, we're getting that earthy energy coming in this larger cycle of Capricorn being about earth and initiating earth and what are we going to create. So this is going to become really important, the sun being with Regulus, because that shift happened in 2011. And that was right before Venus had that eclipse with the sun. That picture that I showed at the beginning is that fixed star shifted into a new sign. Very big deal as far as the royalty, the old guard, the old way of being royal, the kind of the glory days of an elite ruling the rest of the world is really dying. And there's this humbling in Virgo. There's this turning towards the earth, turning towards the ecosystems. Virgo is very, very much about I mean, all the earth signs are, but really about the plant world and really about the medicines and holistic healing and natural healing, and really having the wisdom that comes from what are the plants in the environment that can then heal the parts of, what's happening inside my body, and this real interplay between nature and healing in ourselves. And also the development of a trade. What did we come here to do? What skills do we need to bring that to the world? So it's very different than that Leo shining energy. There's this refinement that is happening in Virgo. And so this is important. And it really is an overtone of this whole new Venus portal, that Venus was at that 17 degrees of Leo. And we can see that there's this red line that goes to the North Node and Uranus. She's making a square, a tense aspect with our collective evolution. The North Node has been in Taurus, which is another of Venus's sign, since, they shifted right about the same time that the new cycle started. The nodal shifts and the Venus cycle are often moving about every 19 months. So this is where the eclipses happen, the North Node. It's opening up to the Taurian energy. And we have Uranus, the great disruptor, the revolutionary, the ruler, guardian of Aquarius right there. And so there's big shakeups happening in the economy, in the food supply. All of these are Taurus issues. And we have this square with Venus, the heart-centered wisdom, the new story, being a leader of heart and being willing to have the courage to show up to our creative potential at this time for this larger vision of our sacred mission. So that's really important. And if you remember, the Venus cycle began at 18 degrees of Capricorn. So this 18 degrees is a really important number for this whole year. And so if we were to, find that and locate that, that would be down here. And those two energetics are not, they make an aspect that is not this, like they're not talking to each other. There's a disconnect between them. And so Venus in Leo, can really bring in something new, some kind of new embodied, creative, solutionary insight to how can I lead in this new way that's beyond the old story. So that's an important piece to this chart. That is the moment of the Venus Moon meetup and the new Venus portal. And just like the full moon, there's a peak to that monthly cycle that Venus has, starting with her meetup with the moon. And then the moon is new a couple of days later. For the peak Venus portal, they are in opposition. So by the peak Venus portal, she'd already moved into Virgo. So we have Venus here, Venus star in Virgo, and the moon at that point was in Pisces. They're closer together than they have been since the beginning of the cycle because Venus is moving towards the sun. So the new Venus portal and the new moon and the peak Venus portal and the full moon are closer together because of Venus's coming into that union with the sun in October. So this is what that looks like. If you were up early looking in the pre-dawn sky, you could see Venus rising in the east and the moon, the almost full moon setting in the west at about the same time. They're in this opposition. But the whole scene has shifted, right? Because we have the moon in Pisces and Venus is in Virgo by that point. So she shifted into this refining energy. And one of the secrets of the Virgo medicine, the really positive part of Virgo is to be in the service to refining without ever trying to get to that perfected state. That's where a lot of frustration happens with Virgo, is that nitpicky criticism, never can get it right. But Virgos really have this power to see what can be improved, what can be refined, and to hold that with openness and hold that as a gift, hold that as a superpower. So Venus may be showing us, we might have had a great creative idea. Well, what steps, what do we need to do on the ground to make that happen? Could that be improved in some way? And when we have an openness and we're not attacking ourselves and going into self-criticism, that refining is really important, so then we create the time we do the work in order to bring forth that gift. So let's look a little bit more at the energetics here. So we're still in the end of morning star descent. This is the last day, possibly, that you can see Venus as morning star. I was up and she looked pretty high this morning, so I'm not sure if tomorrow will be her last day or she'll continue. Really depends where you are in the world. But generally speaking, she is falling out of the morning sky on the 14th. So we're in the very, very end of her morning star descent. And she'll be in Virgo until the 28th. And that's, again, 3 weeks and 3 days. And here's this maiden with her, this isn't wheat, but it's lavender. So she's got that herbal connection to nature. She's definitely more, she's adorned in a different way. She's possibly more academic and reading books and really learning about whatever she's learning about. And so I thought that outfit also matched the energy of Virgo. Of course, these are just archetypes, nothing set in stone here. But this is the glyph Venus in Virgo, and the Virgo sign really represents, even the womb there of the sacred feminine energy, and how that devotion to the divine, that devotion to the sacred can really show up in the day-to-day, in the mundane. This is really the sacred in the mundane. And it feels like, in some ways, like birthing that Leo spark, can really come through. It can come into the real in Virgo. And if you know Virgos, if you have Virgo, you know that Virgos like it real. They like to see the data. They like to know the information, and to really weigh all of the different elements in a situation. And whereas the Leo might just go in more of a passionate way. So Virgo is mutable earth or changeable earth. So there's really this movement that gets to happen in the earth realm, and we get to digest and assimilate and really mull over all of the different pieces of information that we've come across, or discoveries, or wisdom. It's not necessarily just about information, but there's really a digestion that happens here. And then there we have that Venus in Capricorn star point, holding every stop on the journey here, on this heroine's journey. And so we can remember that. We can keep remembering that. And here's the glyph for Capricorn, and that's initiating earth. So now we have the changeable earth and the initiating earth together. So very powerful time to clear out, clean, purify, organize, and prepare for a retreat like Underworld as much as we can. I mean, we're busy. We have busy lives. A lot of us have children and jobs and lots of activities. But the more that we can pull our energy in, there's an internal nature, right, that happens with Virgo and with Underworld. And we can really take advantage of that to deepen into our skills and what is it that we want to bring forth. This is a potent time we're entering into from about tomorrow or, soon, all the way through December 1st, when she will reappear as evening star. And we'll have that first sight of her, and then she'll begin to climb up into the evening sky and meet the moon once a month. And now it will be the waxing crescent moon instead of the waning crescent moon, which she meets in the morning star. And the morning star, we're shedding, we're releasing what is no longer true in order to discover more of our authenticity so we can be more potent in who we actually are. That's the revolution, showing up as we actually are and being real, and being messy and being human, and not trying to be something else, not trying to be a spiritual person or trying to be, you know, a perfect person on social media and only show our good side. You know, all of that superficiality doesn't serve this revolution of deepening into who we are. And then we find the people who are the right people for us because we are willing to be seen, to take off our masks and really be seen. And then the evening star, we start to bring that more into service. It's like a whole delicious initiation process that's going to happen in our being. You know, this is all happening within us, and Venus is just reflecting that back to us. And so the chart for September 9th is interesting because we have this opposition. You know, there's the moon at the 5 degrees Pisces, and there's Venus. Now she is near Regulus. She's joined the sun in Virgo, and she is near Regulus. And of course, you know, the big news was that the queen, the actual royalty, the lineage holder of England, died. And so there's a lot in the field around royalty and ruling and a ruling elite. And some people really have a fondness for the queen and for the monarchy. And some people feel like that's part of the dying system and that's part of the dying culture. And certainly with Regulus moving into Virgo and the potency of this point in the cycle, it would suggest, you know, that is going away, that any people would come in and have that, you know, have that much wealth and that much power just because they were born who they are, isn't a part of this sovereignty in each of us being recognized for our gifts and being able to bring our gifts and being able to generate resources and from our creativity, the resources that we need, and to have that honoring of the diversity of who everyone is, not just one or very few groups of people who are controlling the rest of the population. So that's interesting too. We can see there's a lot going on here. We have, you know, at this point, Mercury hadn't gone retrograde yet, but we have Pluto retrograde, Saturn retrograde. I put Vesta in there. That's the flame for Vesta, if you don't know that, because I use Vesta as a co-ruler of Virgo. And so Vesta is in this chart next to Saturn. And that's, again, bringing that unique, out of the box, rebel, dissident vision, solutionary vision. And it really does take courage to show up and be who we are and say, hey, I have this idea. I want to do things differently. There's so many communities that are forming underground with all the restrictions and all the bullshit that happened during COVID. There's so many communities that just formed as like, all right, we're getting off the teat of this dying system. We're going to create our own food system. We're going to create our own medical system. We're going to put our energy there into the new, breathing life into the new. And so that's really interesting that Vesta is there with Saturn, who's really disciplining us around that Aquarian vision, you know. I could talk more about that. I won't. But that you're getting the idea here of how we are working with this chart. So we wouldn't really count Vesta's retrograde as one of the retrogrades. So we have Pluto retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Neptune retrograde, Jupiter retrograde. Chiron really does almost have planetary status at this point. So we're going to count Chiron. We're not going to count Eris. Sorry, Eris. So that's 5. Uranus is 6. And then Mercury had gone retrograde too. So that's 7 planets and important planetoid bodies retrograde. So going in, diving in for that refining of our shine, of our offering, that is going to be so potent when we come back out in the evening star time to start to bring that into the world. So each of you have this energetic design. I call it the Venus avatar. I'm going to be teaching more on that soon. And it really is a support in having that confidence to drop into that deep, unknown, mysterious, multidimensional place within us, and actually to live and create from that part of our being, because there's so much pulling at us. The distractions right now are just amazing. So I hope you take some time to create and organize your life during this underworld dive. And if you have not seen Venus as morning star in the pre-dawn sky, this is a beautiful time to get up and to receive her light in your eyes and just see what happens. Just be a cosmic detective. There's nothing that needs to be done. If you want, if you've been in devotion to that relationship and loving that, it's a good time to say goodbye. You could bring some flowers, honey, just think of the Venusian things, not to worship. We're beyond that. That's age of Pisces. We don't need to worship anything outside of ourselves, not planets, not gurus, none of it. But, as a celebration, a song is always a beautiful offering. A dance, if you don't mind looking strange somewhere outside. One time I created a very safe little fire, and I burned some herbs, and I had a man stop on the road and check in with what I was doing. So depends on where you are and what you want to do to give thanks for being able to really claim the heroine that you are in your life and find your power no matter what's happened. Really hard things have gone down, and we can turn again and again to that inner power and to that learning and to that showing up to the moment new, and relentlessly and joyfully claiming, our path to create this new earth together and find the people, find the collaborators who we are in sync with, we're in harmony with. There's that Venus principle again of harmony and being able to create something cohesive and build on something together. So blessings on your life. Thanks for tuning in. You can always find my writings on Venus at venuswisdom.com. You can grab your calendar and guidebook there if you wish, and more soon. Take good care.